Picture this, right? We're deep in the Swiss woods.
Okay.
It's 1922, and we're standing near the northern banks of Lake Zurich in this really tiny, quiet village called Bollingen.
Sounds peaceful.
It does, right. And right there, nestled in the trees, totally away from the bustling clinics and the loud academic chatter of the city, the famed psychiatrist Carl Jung is literally laying stones.
Wait, like with his own hands?
With his own hands.
Yeah.
He's building a rustic 2-story stone house. He simply calls it the tower.
Just the tower. I like that.
Yeah. Now, looking at this, you might think, oh, nice. A cozy vacation home, a little getaway for a stressed out doctor to drink tea and read.
Sure, yeah, just a place to unplug.
But you'd be entirely wrong. I mean, totally wrong. Jung wasn't building a place to escape his work. He was building a fortress to advance it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He was preparing for intellectual combat. He was getting ready to challenge his former mentor, Sigmund Freud.
Which, I mean, back then, disagreeing with Freud in the 1920s psychoanalytic community, that wasn't just a disagreement.
No, it was massive.
It was an incredibly risky career move. It was basically academic heresy.
Exactly, academic heresy. And to win this battle of ideas, Jung realized that, well, raw intelligence just wasn't enough.
Right.
He needed an environment for absolute, pristine, distraction-free concentration. He needed to think deeper than he ever had before in his entire life.
Which brings us perfectly to today's topic.
Yes, it does. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring Cal Newport's really transformative concept of deep work.
Such an important concept.
It really is, and we've got some amazing sources today. We're pulling from an extensive audiobook transcript of the book and an analytical YouTube video summary that really dissects all these ideas.
Yeah, and our mission today is to shortcut your path to becoming well-informed on this, because we want to figure out how you, the listener, can build your own metaphorical stone tower.
Right, in a world that is just, let's be honest, absolutely obsessed with distraction.
It's the defining challenge of our modern professional lives. I mean, we are taking all these brilliant concepts from Newport's work, synthesizing them to really get to the bottom of how you can rewire your brain for focus.
Because the way we work today, it's fundamentally broken.
It is. We're exhausted all the time, right?
Yeah, exhausted, but we aren't actually producing much of profound value.
Exactly. But before we diagnose the disease, we have to define the cure. What exactly was Carl Jung doing in that stone tower?
Right. What's the actual definition here?
He was engaging in deep work. By definition, from our sources, deep work consists of professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration.
Okay, distraction-free.
Yes. And these activities have to push your cognitive capabilities to their absolute limit.
Oh, so it's not just checking emails quietly.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
These efforts create new value, they improve your skills, and this is key. They are incredibly hard for anyone else to replicate.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because on the flip side, we have the villain of the story, what we call shallow work.
The stuff that fills up, 90% of our days?
Yeah, pretty much. Shallow work involves these non-cognitively demanding logistical tasks that you usually perform while you're distracted.
Like answering endless emails.
Right, answering emails, jumping into random Slack threads,
Yeah.
formatting a PowerPoint slide for the 4th time.
Or sitting in status meetings where literally nothing is actually decided.
Oh man, the worst. You're basically acting like a human network router, just passing information from one node to another.
Yeah, just pinging things around.
Exactly. It doesn't push your brain, it doesn't create much new value, and most dangerously, it is very easy to replicate.
Which is a scary thought for job security.
Right. If I can train a college intern to do your job in 2 weeks, you are drowning in shallow work.
And that contrast leads us directly to the core premise of all of this, which the sources call the deep work hypothesis.
Which is what exactly?
It states that the ability to perform deep work is becoming increasingly rare. At the exact same time, it is becoming increasingly valuable in our economy.
So rare and valuable.
Yeah. Therefore, the few people who actually cultivate this skill and make it the absolute core of their working life, those are the ones who are going to thrive.
I love that framing. It's rare, it's valuable, and it's your ticket to thriving. But, we can't just accept that on blind faith.
No, we need the evidence.
Right. If you're listening to this right now while maybe secretly checking your email, don't worry, we all do it. You need to know why.
Why is this the ultimate currency?
Yeah. Why is deep work the ultimate currency in today's economy? Because before we talk about how to do it, we really need to look at the macroeconomic reality. We are sitting in the middle of a massive structural shift in how value is created, aren't we?
We really are. To understand the stakes here, the sources pointed to the work of economists Eric Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee.
Okay.
In their book, Race Against the Machine, they outline this phenomenon they call the Great Restructuring.
The Great Restructuring sounds intense.
It is. We're living through an era where digital technology is advancing at an exponential, terrifyingly fast rate.
Yeah, AI and automation are everywhere.
Right. But our human skills, our societal institutions, and traditional businesses, they're advancing linearly. They're lagging way behind.
So there's a massive gap.
Exactly. And this restructuring is violently dividing the economy. The middle is getting hollowed out, and the rewards are flowing to three very specific, distinct groups.
The winners of the digital age. Okay, let's break them down for the listener. Group 1, the high-skilled workers.
Now, these aren't just people with, standard college degrees.
Right. These are the people who can work creatively and effectively with incredibly complex, intelligent machines.
You give an example?
Yeah, the sources use a great one. And Nate Silver, back when he first disrupted election forecasting, he didn't just type who will win the election into Google and read some op-eds.
No, he built a complex statistical engine.
Exactly. He used massive SQL databases and heavy-duty statistical software called Stata. He was dealing with multi-level generalized linear models and Monte Carlo simulations.
Stuff that sounds like a foreign language to most people.
Right. Because the machine is powerful, but it's completely useless without a human who has the deep, high-level skill to feed it the right questions.
And to interpret the outputs. He mastered a hard machine to extract incredibly valuable insights.
Precisely. Now, what's Group 2?
Group 2 is the superstars. These are the absolute best individuals in their respective fields.
Okay, but why do they win so big right now? Haven't there always been superstars?
Yes, but the reason they win so big right now is that high-speed data networks and collaborative tools have completely destroyed regionalism in knowledge work.
Regionalism. Wait, explain that.
Think about it. 30 years ago, if you needed a computer programmer for your mid-sized company in Ohio, you hired the best programmer in Ohio.
Right, or at least whoever answered the ad in the local paper.
Exactly. But today, if you need a programmer or a designer or consultant, you don't have to hire locally. You can hire the best person in the world.
Ah, I see.
The sources look at David Heinemeier Hansson. He's the superstar programmer who created the Ruby on Rails framework.
Oh, that's huge.
Right. He is a partner at the software firm Basecamp. He can work remotely from Spain or Chicago or Malibu, and companies will pay an absolute premium for him.
Because they can reach him now.
Yeah. In a universal, globally connected talent market, the absolute best take almost all the rewards. The number 2 person gets a fraction, and the number 10 person gets nothing. It's a winner-take-all dynamic.
Wow. Okay, and then there's the third group, the owners.
The people with the money.
Yeah. These are the people with the capital to invest in all this new labor-saving technology. Think venture capitalists like John Doerr.
Right, because if you own the intelligent machines or you fund the people building them, the returns are astronomical.
Exactly, because you no longer need a massive labor force, factories, and physical supply chains to generate a billion-dollar valuation.
Look at Instagram.
Perfect example. When Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion, Instagram had 13 employees. 13.
$1 billion for a 13-person company. That's insane.
So capital is winning out over labor in a big way. But, let's be honest. Assuming you don't have a spare $1 billion lying around to become an owner, we need to focus on joining those first 2 groups.
The high-skilled workers and the superstars.
Exactly. And that is exactly where deep work enters the equation.
Because to join either of those first 2 groups, you absolutely must possess 2 core abilities.
What's the first one?
Number 1, you need the ability to quickly master hard things.
Because technology changes too rapidly, right?
Exactly. What you know today, the software you use today, will be obsolete in 3 years. You have to become an expert, rapid learner.
Right. And the second ability?
Number 2, you need the ability to produce at an elite level in terms of both quality and speed.
Okay, so it's not enough to just learn something.
No, you have to transform that latent potential into tangible, valuable results that the market actually cares about.
This is where things get really fascinating for me, because this isn't just like self-help platitudes, This is hard neuroscience.
It really is.
Both of those abilities, mastering hard things and producing at an elite level, they rely entirely on the biological mechanism of your brain during deep work.
Let's break that down.
Yeah, let's talk about the learning part first. To master hard things, you have to engage in what the psychologist K. Anders Ericsson famously called deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice, right.
But deliberate practice requires intense, unwavering focus. You can't just casually, deliberately practice something.
No. And the reason comes down to a substance in your brain called myelin.
Yes, myelin, the unsung hero of human performance.
The science of performance basically argues that you get better at a skill strictly by developing more myelin around the relevant neural pathways in your brain.
Let's visualize this for the listener. Think of your neural pathways like a complex network of electrical wires.
Okay. Visualizing wire.
Every time you try to learn a new coding language or speak French or write a complex legal brief, a specific circuit of neurons fires.
Right.
Now, myelin is this fatty tissue that wraps around these wires. It acts exactly like the rubber insulation on an electrical cord.
Okay, that makes sense.
When you first start learning, that wire is bare. The electrical signal leaks. It's slow, it's clumsy. That's why being a beginner feels so frustrating.
Because the signal isn't efficient yet.
Exactly. But as you practice, specialized cells called oligodendrocytes wrap layers of myelin around that specific neural circuit.
And what does that insulation actually do? It allows the brain's electrical signals to fire much faster and much cleaner. It literally lowers the electrical resistance.
So the more myelin you build, the more effortless and elite the skill becomes.
Yes, but here is the critical catch. The biological bottleneck.
What is it?
You cannot myelinate effectively if you are multitasking.
Exactly. This is the core of it. Imagine trying to learn a hard concept while in a distracted state. You have a textbook open or you're watching a complex tutorial, but your phone is buzzing on the desk.
You've got Twitter open on a second monitor.
Right. And you're half listening to a podcast. Your brain is firing so many different circuits simultaneously and haphazardly.
So the wire for the new skill remains thin and easily cut.
Yeah, the oligodendrocytes are confused. They don't know which circuit to insulate because everything is firing at once.
But when you engage in focused, repetitive, deep work,
you are isolating one single specific neural circuit. You are forcefully telling your brain, this is the only thing that matters right now.
And that triggers the massive accumulation of myelin.
You create a thick, heavily insulated cable that fires effortlessly. It is a biological impossibility to learn hard things quickly without intense, deep focus.
That beautifully explains the learning aspect, the first ability.
Yeah.
But what about the second ability? Producing at an elite level.
Right. How do we take that myelinated brain and actually get massive amounts of high-quality work out of it?
To understand this, the sources look at Adam Grant.
The Wharton professor.
Yes, he's a professor at the Wharton School of Business, and he is the ultimate case study here. He achieved full professorship at an absurdly young age.
Oh, wow. How did he do that?
He did it because he produces a staggering, almost unbelievable number of high-quality, peer-reviewed academic papers.
Okay, wait. How does he do it? Does he just work 100-hour gigs? Is he just not sleeping?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
His secret is that he ruthlessly batches his work.
Batches his work, meaning what?
He dedicates entire semesters exclusively to teaching, and then entire semesters exclusively to research.
So he completely separates them.
Yes. But even within those research semesters, he batches further. He will take multi-day stretches where his office door is physically shut.
Like locked.
Basically. Yeah. His out-of-office email responder is turned on, and he is totally, completely isolated. He doesn't check his email once an hour. He goes completely dark.
Now, to a lot of people listening, going dark for 3 days sounds insane. It sounds like a great way to get fired.
It does sound extreme.
But Grant's extreme approach is the only way to combat a phenomenon discovered by business professor Sophie Leroy.
Right.
She coined a term that I honestly think explains 90% of modern workplace burnout.
What is it?
Attention residue.
Attention residue. What's fascinating here is that this is a vital concept for anyone trying to do good work.
Explain the experiments, Sharan.
Leroy ran a series of psychological experiments looking at task switching. The modern knowledge worker switches tasks constantly, right? From a spreadsheet to an email to a Slack message, back to the spreadsheet, into a meeting.
Yeah, we think we're being so productive. We think we are seamlessly pivoting.
But we aren't. Leroy found that when you switch your attention from task A to task B, your attention does not cleanly transition.
Oh, it doesn't?
No. A residue of your attention remains stuck, hovering over task A.
Wow. It's like having too many apps open on your phone, just draining the battery in the background.
That is the perfect analogy. And it's even worse if you didn't finish task A before switching.
Because your brain hates open loops.
Exactly. If you leave a task unresolved, that residue is slathered on incredibly thick. So while you're trying to focus on task B, let's say, writing a complex proposal, a significant portion of your cognitive processing power is still subconsciously trying to solve the problem from task A.
That's terrifying.
It is. Your performance on task B is severely dampened. You are literally working with a handicapped brain.
Yeah.
Adam Grant's extreme isolation minimizes this attention residue entirely.
Which allows his brain to operate at 100% peak efficiency for days at a time.
Entirely.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second here. Let's make this real for you listening right now.
Okay, go ahead.
I hear what you're saying about completely switching tasks, like going from writing a report to sitting in an hour-long meeting. Obviously, that breaks focus.
Sure.
But what if I'm working on that report and I just take a quick 10-second glance at my email inbox?
Just 10 seconds.
Yeah. I'm not going to reply to anything. I just want to see if my boss emailed me or if that client got back to me. Just a tiny glance to ease my anxiety. That can't be that bad, right? I mean, it's just 10 seconds.
Actually, that 10-second glance might be one of the most destructive things you can do to your deep work session.
Wait, seriously, why? How can 10 seconds do that much damage?
Because of what you are guaranteed to see when you look at that inbox.
What do you mean?
When you glance at your email, you are going to see messages that you cannot deal with in that exact moment. You're going to see an urgent request from a client or, a vague, slightly aggressive email from a colleague saying, we need to talk.
Oh, the dreaded we need to talk email.
Right. Your brain immediately reads that and starts processing it. It loads the context of that person, the project, the potential conflict.
Yeah, you can't help it.
But then you say, I can't deal with this right now. And you force your attention back to your report. You have just introduced a massive dose of attention residue. You've opened a loop that your brain is now desperately trying to close. Your subconscious is chewing on that vague email while you're trying to write. Your cognitive performance will take a massive hit, and your anxiety will spike, all from a 10-second glance.
Man, guilty as charged. I do that all the time. I'll check my phone, see a text I don't have the mental energy to reply to, and then spend the next 20 minutes feeling vaguely stressed while trying to work. It's self-sabotage.
It really is.
But wait, if focus and avoiding attention residue are so mathematically necessary for elite output, I have to bring up a glaring exception.
Okay, what's the exception?
What about someone like Jack Dorsey?
Ah, the Jack Dorsey example.
Yeah. Back when he was running both Twitter and Square simultaneously, two massive tech companies, he was famously working in a state of constant distraction.
Very true.
He talked about having 30 to 40 meetings a day. He would stand at high tables in the open so anyone could interrupt him at any moment. He was a billionaire CEO, and he was the exact opposite of Adam Grant.
He was practically bathing in attention residue.
Exactly. Doesn't that completely break the deep work rule?
That is a very common objection. But Jack Dorsey is the exception that proves the rule. We have to understand the actual nature of a CEO's job.
Okay, what's the difference?
Jack Dorsey, like many top-tier executives, functions as what we might call a hard-to-automate decision engine.
A decision engine.
Yes. A CEO's value does not come from locking themselves in a room for 4 hours to write lines of code or draft marketing copy. Their value comes from rapidly processing a massive amount of high-level inputs, managing personnel, and using their heavily honed instincts to make final decisions.
So they aren't doing the deep work themselves.
Right. They hire other smart people, like deep-working programmers and strategists, to do the intense, prolonged thinking and present them with options.
Ah, I see. So the CEO is the router, but they're routing billion-dollar decisions.
Oh, exactly. For a CEO, the rapid task switching is the job. But, and this is a massive, but unless you are a high-level executive whose specific job description is rapid-fire, high-stakes decision-making, emulating Jack Dorsey's highly distracted style will completely destroy your output.
So if you're a normal employee, don't copy the CEO.
Exactly. If you are a writer, a coder, an analyst, an accountant, or a marketer, your value comes from depth. Emulating the work habits of a CEO is a recipe for mediocrity.
That makes total sense. We look at the most famous people in business, the CEOs, and we copy their habits, not realizing their job is fundamentally different from ours.
It's a huge mistake.
So if deep work is this incredibly valuable, scientifically backed superpower, why are modern businesses seemingly perfectly designed to destroy it?
It's the big question.
It feels like a massive paradox. We've established that depth creates value, yet we're told to push for open plan offices, we're expected to stay constantly connected on Slack, we're bombarded with instant messaging. Why are companies doing this to themselves?
It is a profound paradox. The modern workplace is basically an engine for shallow work. The research highlights 3 bizarre, pervasive trends that are currently destroying focus.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, the open floor office. We saw tech companies lead this charge. Facebook famously built a 10-acre open floor plan designed to hold 3,000 employees in one massive room.
3,000 people in one room. That sounds like a nightmare.
The idea was to foster serendipitous collaboration.
Oh, right. Bumping into people and having genius ideas.
Right. Second, the rise of instant messaging tools. Slack, Microsoft Teams, previously things like Hall or IBM's internal systems. These demand real-time collaboration and constant pinging alerts.
Constant interruption.
And third, the trend of forcing knowledge workers to maintain a constant social media presence. You have serious Pulitzer-level journalists at major newspapers being pressured by management to tweet constantly throughout the day.
Rather than spending that time actually investigating complex stories, it's madness.
It really is.
If distraction destroys the myelin building and attention residue ruins elite output, why do Fortune 500 companies embrace it?
The answer lies in a concept called the metric black hole.
The metric black hole. Explain that.
Well, in an industrial setting, productivity is easy to measure. If you work on an assembly line, I can count exactly how many widgets you produce in an hour.
Very straightforward.
But in knowledge work, it is incredibly difficult to measure the exact bottom line impact of an individual worker's specific behaviors. How do you measure the ROI of a 4-hour unbroken thinking session versus an hour spent answering 50 emails?
It's nearly impossible for most companies to quantify.
Exactly. To illustrate just how deep this black hole is, the sources consider the story of Tom Cochran.
Oh, the Atlantic media executive.
Yes. He started to realize that he was spending an hour and a half every single day just processing emails. He felt it was a waste of time, but he couldn't prove it.
Because of the metric black hole.
Right. So he actually had to build a complex statistical model. He gathered salary data, reading speeds, and typing speeds company-wide. He crunched the numbers just to figure out the financial cost of this one behavior.
And what did he find?
He discovered that his company was spending over $1 million a year, paying people strictly to process internal emails.
$1 million just on emails.
Because the cost of distraction and the value of depth are so hard to cleanly measure on a corporate balance sheet, arbitrary, trendy, distracting behaviors are allowed to take over.
Wow. And this raises an important question. Without clear metrics guiding behavior, what do human beings default to?
They default to the principle of least resistance.
The principle of least resistance.
Yes. In a business setting, when there is no clear feedback on the financial impact of various behaviors, we naturally gravitate toward whatever is easiest in the moment.
And what's easiest in the moment is usually firing off a quick email.
Precisely. Let's look at a fascinating study by Harvard professor Leslie Perlow. She embedded with the Boston Consulting Group.
Oh, this study blew my mind. Tell them about this.
BCG is a high-powered elite consulting firm. They had an ingrained toxic culture of 24/7 connectivity. Consultants were expected to reply to emails at 11 p.m. on a Saturday.
Brutal.
Perlow came in and essentially forced these teams to take one day completely off every week. No email, no phone, no checking in, total disconnection.
And what happened?
The consultants were absolutely terrified. They thought the clients would rebel, they'd lose their contracts, and they'd get fired.
They thought their constant availability was the value they were providing.
Exactly. But what actually happened? The clients didn't care. In fact, the quality of the work improved. Internal communication improved. The consultants were happier and sharper.
So the constant connectivity wasn't actually necessary.
Not at all. Yet, despite this overwhelming empirical evidence that constant connectivity is bad for the actual work, it persists in most places. because of the principle of least resistance. It is fundamentally easier to run your day out of a reactive inbox, just
Sure.
ping-ponging messages back and forth, letting other people's emergencies dictate your schedule, than it is to rigorously plan your time, set boundaries, and think deeply about your long-term priorities.
Deep work is hard. Reacting to a dinging notification is easy.
Exactly.
It's the illusion of productivity. It feels like you're working, but you're just treading water. Which brings up another huge related problem: busyness as a proxy for productivity.
Yes. This is everywhere.
Think about it. How do knowledge workers prove their worth if they don't produce physical widgets? Their jobs are inherently ambiguous. A marketing strategist might spend 3 days staring at a whiteboard thinking.
Which is doing work.
Right. But to a traditional manager, that looks like slacking off. So because their value is hard to prove, workers revert to an industrial age mindset. They try to do lots of stuff in a highly visible manner.
Just sending emails at midnight.
Rushing down the hallway looking stressed between back-to-back meetings, responding to a Slack message in under 10 seconds. It's a massive signaling game. It says, "Look at me, look how fast I type, I'm working hard, please don't fire me."
It is entirely a performance. It has nothing to do with creating value.
Contrast that performative busyness with someone like the brilliant physicist Richard Feynman.
Oh, Feynman is a great example.
Feynman won a Nobel Prize, and he actually invented a myth about himself that he was actively irresponsible.
Actively irresponsible.
Well, yeah. He explicitly told everyone around him that he wouldn't do any committee work, he wouldn't do administrative tasks, he wouldn't manage people. He pretended to be totally irresponsible purely so he could protect his time to sit in a room and do real, deep, universe-altering physics.
He rejected the proxy of busyness.
Totally rejected it. Now, contrast Feynman with the former CEO of Yahoo, Marissa Mayer. A few years ago, she famously banned remote work at the company.
Oh, I remember that.
Do you remember why? Because she checked the VPN server logs and decided employees weren't visibly logging in enough throughout the day. She was explicitly equating visible, measurable computer activity with value creation.
And we can't ignore the final trend feeding this paradox of distraction. The cult of the internet.
Cult of the internet.
The sources bring in Evgeny Morozov's concept of technopoly, or internet centrism. In our modern culture, we have developed a massive blind spot where we just blindly assume that anything related to the internet, anything digital, is inherently good, innovative, and entirely necessary.
Yeah, we treat the internet like a religion. I remember reading an anecdote about this. Someone was driving down the highway, sitting behind a massive industrial refrigerated trucking company's 18-wheeler.
Okay.
And on the back of the truck was a giant sticker that said, "Like us on Facebook."
Oh,
Exactly. Stop and think about that. Why in the world does a complex business-to-business supply chain logistics company need you to like their Facebook page? It makes absolutely zero business sense. Are you going to order 10,000 pounds of frozen chicken because you like their meme?
no. Obviously not.
But in an internet-centric technopoly, we don't ask if a tool actually provides value. We assume if it's on the internet, we must do it. To question the value of social media or instant connectivity or being on Twitter is seen as backward. You're labeled a Luddite.
It's a very powerful cultural force that pushes us toward shallow behaviors, simply because those behaviors involve the newest digital tools.
Okay, so we've thoroughly established the cold, hard economic logic of deep work. It makes you a winner in the new economy. It biologically rewires your brain for elite performance. And we've debunked the corporate paradoxes that try to prevent it.
Right.
But I want to shift gears here and talk about the human element.
Because it's not just about productivity.
Exactly. Because if this is just a strategy to grind out slightly better spreadsheets for a corporation, it sounds pretty bleak. Is there something fundamentally deeply fulfilling about focus? Can knowledge workers sitting in cubicles under fluorescent lights actually find true meaning in their day-to-day?
To answer that, we have to look outside the corporate world for a moment. The sources use an incredibly powerful analogy involving a craftsman named Rick Furr.
The blacksmith.
Yes. Rick is a blacksmith,
Right.
but not just any blacksmith. He painstakingly creates Viking-era swords. And he does it using a 1,500-year-old technique to smelt crucible steel.
I can almost smell the smoke in the metal just hearing about it.
It is intense physical and mental labor. It takes him 8 hours of continuous methodical hammering just to shape a small, raw ingot of steel.
8 hours just hammering.
Yes, he has to monitor the temperature, the color of the metal, the force of his strikes. If his concentration slips even for a fraction of a moment, if he hits it slightly off angle or lets it cool too much, the blade cracks. Dozens of hours of incredibly hard work are instantly ruined. But when he succeeds, when he finally quenches that glaring, perfectly shaped sword in oil, the profound satisfaction and meaning he derives from that intense focus is palpable. He has imposed his will on the physical world through absolute mastery.
It's beautiful. It really is romantic. But, here is the problem for you listening right now. I sit in front of a laptop all day. I don't get to plunge glowing crucible steel into oil. I manipulate pixels and spreadsheets.
Right, it's not as cinematic.
Can a knowledge worker actually find that same level of primal meaning?
The sources say yes.
Yeah.
And they provide 3 very compelling, distinct arguments for why a life built around deep work is fundamentally a good life.
Okay, what's the first one?
Let's start with the neurological argument. This is based on the work of science writer Winifred Gallagher. Years ago, she received a terrifying, potentially terminal cancer diagnosis.
Wow, that's awful.
But she realized something profound during her brutal treatment process. She realized that who you are is the sum of what you focus on.
The sum of what you focus on.
Yes. She found that if she allowed her brain to focus on the terror of the disease, her life was hell. But if she forced her attention intensely onto positive, deeply engaging things, a walk in nature, a good movie, her brain literally constructed a pleasant reality, despite the cancer attacking her body.
That is incredible.
That is the ultimate key to human experience. Skillful management of attention is the sine qua non of the good life.
The essential condition.
Exactly. When you concentrate intensely on a deep, complex task, you literally hijack your brain's attention apparatus. Your neurological bandwidth is finite.
So you can only process so much.
Right. If you are deeply immersed in writing a beautiful piece of code or crafting an intricate argument, you simply do not have the leftover neurological processing power to notice or dwell on the shallow, stressful, and trivial anxieties of life.
Oh, I see.
But think about the alternative. If you spend your whole day reacting to petty office politics in your inbox, doom scrolling on Twitter, and worrying about what your boss thinks, your brain uses its bandwidth to construct a reality that is fundamentally stressful, irritating, and shallow.
Deep work biologically protects your brain from the shallows of modern life.
Exactly.
Wow. So deep work is almost a form of neurological self-defense. Okay, the second argument for the meaning of depth is psychological. This centers around the legendary psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Right, the flow guy.
Yeah. He's famous for inventing the experience sampling method, or ESM. Before ESM, psychology mostly relied on people trying to remember how they felt in the past, which, is highly inaccurate.
We have terrible memories for emotion.
Exactly. So Csikszentmihalyi gave his subjects physical pagers. These pages would beep at random times throughout the day, and the subject had to immediately record exactly what they were doing and exactly how they felt in that exact moment.
Catching them in the act.
Right. Now, the conventional wisdom, the dream we are all sold, is that human beings are happiest when we are doing nothing. We think the peak of human existence is relaxing in a hammock on a beach with a margarita. But the ESM studies prove the exact opposite.
The data was crystal clear. The hammock does not make us truly happy.
No.
Humans are happiest when their minds and their bodies are stretched to their absolute limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile.
Which Csikszentmihalyi famously called flow.
Right, this optimal state of experience. When you are in flow, you lose track of time, you lose your sense of self-consciousness, and you are completely immersed in the task.
And what is deep work? Deep work is essentially an engine specifically designed to generate flow states on demand. By structuring your life around depth, you are systematically increasing the amount of flow you experience, which directly increases your psychological happiness.
Which leads us perfectly into the third philosophical argument, and this goes incredibly deep.
Let's hear it.
The sources cite philosophers Hubert Dreyfus and Sean Dorrance Kelly, specifically their book All Things Shining. They argue that ever since the Enlightenment, our culture has struggled with a creeping, pervasive nihilism.
Nihilism.
Yes. In the past, meaning was handed to us by religion, or kings, or rigid social structures. The Enlightenment freed us from that, placing the autonomous individual above all else. We are now completely free to decide for ourselves what is meaningful.
But that freedom is terrifying.
It can feel incredibly arbitrary. Why does my marketing report matter in a universe of billions of galaxies?
It's an existential crisis waiting to happen every time you open Excel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Dreyfus and Kelly argue that craftsmanship offers a solution to this nihilism. They use the example of a traditional wheelwright, someone shaping a wooden wagon wheel by hand.
Right.
The wheelwright doesn't have to invent the meaning of the wheel out of thin air. Instead, he discovers the subtle virtues inherent in the wood itself. He follows the grain, he respects the material. The meaning already exists in the interaction between the human skill and the physical material.
So how does this connect to us? What does this mean for the listener who is an accountant or a software engineer?
What's the takeaway?
It means that you do not need a rarefied, glamorous job to find profound meaning in your life. You don't need to quit your job and become a blacksmith in the woods to find fulfillment. You just need a rarefied, deep approach to your current job.
It's how you do it, not what you do.
Right. A computer programmer who sits down, blocks out the world, and writes incredibly elegant, concise, bug-free code can experience the exact same sacred craftsmanship as the medieval wheelwright. An accountant who creates a perfectly structured, beautiful financial model can experience it too. The satisfaction, the meaning, comes from the depth of the skill and the focus, not the specific job description.
That is a profound realization. The meaning is in the method, not the outcome.
Exactly.
So we've thoroughly established the why of deep work, both economically and humanistically. We know it's valuable, and we know it makes life worth living. Now we must transition to the how.
Yes, the tactical stuff.
How do we actually do this? Rule number one is simply, work deeply. But before we get into the tactics, we must acknowledge a critical, often ignored scientific reality.
Willpower is finite.
Willpower is finite. This is where most people fail. They hear all this, they get motivated, and they say, tomorrow I'm going to just try harder to focus. I'm going to use sheer willpower to ignore my phone.
And it never works.
Never. The sources reference a landmark study by psychologists Wilhelm Hoffman and Roy Baumeister. They used a modern version of that beeper method we talked about earlier. They constantly beeped people and asked them what desires they were currently experiencing and fighting against.
Well, the results were staggering, right?
Staggering. It turns out people spend a massive, exhausting portion of their waking day simply fighting the desire to give in to distraction, fighting the urge to check email, surf the web, check social media, or turn on the TV.
And as Baumeister's subsequent research proved, willpower is not an endless well. It behaves exactly like a muscle.
Right, it gets tired.
As you use it throughout the day, it fatigues, it depletes. If you spend your entire morning using willpower to resist checking Twitter while your phone sits face up on your desk, by 2 p.m., your willpower muscle is exhausted. You will inevitably cave.
You can't just tough it out.
No.
Yeah.
You cannot rely purely on good intentions to wrest your attention away from the shiny, highly engineered internet. You will fail. Instead of relying on willpower, you need systems. You need ironclad routines and rituals that remove the need for willpower entirely.
I love the idea of designing systems instead of relying on grit. To illustrate the ultimate system, the sources describe a fascinating architectural concept by David Dewayne.
Oh, the eudaimonia machine.
Yes, the eudaimonia machine. Eudaimonia is an ancient Greek concept of human flourishing. Dewayne designed a theoretical, one-story, narrow building. It consists of 5 distinct rooms placed in a linear sequence.
So you have to walk through them in order.
You cannot skip a room, you have to walk through them sequentially. First, you enter the gallery, which is full of inspiring examples of deep work from your field.
Get the creative juices flowing.
Then you move into the salon, which has coffee and couches for collaborative debate and socializing. Next is the library, a quiet place to gather resources and research.
Okay.
Then the office, which is a standard room for necessary, shallow work. Checking emails, making quick calls. Finally, at the very back of the building, you reach the deep work chambers.
And these are serious rooms.
These are 6 by 10 foot, perfectly soundproofed rooms with 18 inches of insulation. No Wi-Fi, no distractions, designed purely for uninterrupted, intense focus.
The eudaimonia machine represents the perfect externalization of deep work rituals. It physically guides your brain state from shallow to deep. But, of course, most of us do not have millions of dollars to build a custom eudaimonia machine in our backyards.
No, sadly, we don't.
We work in cubicles or messy home offices or crowded coffee shops. Therefore, we have to simulate the eudaimonia machine using our personal scheduling habits.
Right. We had to build the machine with our calendars. The sources detail 4 distinct depth philosophies for how to schedule this, and this is crucial for the listener. You have to choose the one that actually fits your real life and your specific career constraints, because a mismatch will doom your deep work habit before it starts.
Okay, let's walk through them. First is the monastic philosophy.
This is the extreme end of the spectrum.
Total isolation. You attempt to eliminate all shallow obligations entirely. A classic example is the legendary computer scientist Donald Knuth. He dropped email entirely in 1990.
Wow.
If you want to reach him, you have to send a physical letter via postal mail, and his assistant sorts it. Science fiction author Neil Stephenson famously refuses all speaking gigs, interviews, and casual correspondence because his linear productivity equation requires massive, unbroken chunks of time to write his sprawling novels.
The monastic approach is incredibly powerful, yielding massive results for those who can pull it off, but it is very rare.
Yeah, you have to be at the top of your field.
Most of us cannot drop off the map entirely. If you're an employee, ignoring all your emails will get you fired, not promoted.
Exactly.
That brings us to the second approach, the bimodal philosophy. This asks you to divide your time into distinct deep and shallow blocks, but the deep blocks must be significant, at least a full day, preferably longer.
Like Carl Jung in his tower.
Yes, this is what Carl Jung used. He would retreat to his Bullingen Tower for weeks of deep thinking, but he also maintained a bustling, highly social clinical practice in Zurich the rest of the time.
Okay.
Wharton professor Adam Grant, who we discussed earlier, uses this by taking those 4-day isolation periods where he sets his out-of-office responder, completely cutting himself off before returning to his normal, highly accessible teaching schedule.
But again, let's look at the listener. What if you have a standard 9-to-5 job? What if you have a manager who demands regular replies or clients who expect a turnaround within hours? You can't vanish for 4 days.
No, you can't.
If that's you, you probably need the rhythmic philosophy. This is all about generating a rock-solid, unbreakable daily habit.
Give us an example.
The sources bring up Brian Chappell. He was a doctoral candidate, but he also had a demanding full-time job and a newborn baby at home. He didn't have huge blocks of free time, so he wrote his dissertation by waking up and working deeply from 5 to 7:30 a.m. every single weekday morning, without exception.
Wow, that takes discipline.
Before the baby woke up, before the emails started flying. It's essentially the Jerry Seinfeld chain method. Do your work every day, put a big red X on the calendar, and don't break the chain.
The rhythmic philosophy is highly effective because it drastically reduces the willpower needed to start working.
Yeah.
If you decide in advance that you write every morning at 5 a.m., the decision is already made. You don't have to wake up and debate, should I work today or should I sleep in? The routine takes over.
Finally, there is the journalistic philosophy. This involves shifting into deep work mode on the fly whenever free time presents itself in your schedule.
The Walter Isaacson method.
Exactly. The journalist and biographer Walter Isaacson famously used this method. He wrote a massive 900-page book while simultaneously maintaining a highly demanding, unpredictable career as a high-level magazine editor. If he had 20 minutes free before a meeting started, he wouldn't check his phone.
You just dive in.
He would flip open his laptop and instantly drop into a deep work state to write 2 paragraphs. But the sources give a huge warning here. This is the most difficult philosophy for a novice.
It absolutely is. Rapidly switching your attention from a shallow meeting into intense depth requires incredibly strong, highly trained concentration muscles and a supreme confidence in your own abilities. A beginner trying the journalistic method will just end up staring blankly at the screen for 20 minutes, fighting attention residue before the meeting starts.
Okay, so you pick your philosophy, but whichever one you choose, you have to support it with strict rituals. You can't just sit down at a messy desk, open a blank document, and hope inspiration strikes.
No, you need structure.
You have to decide in advance where you'll work, exactly for how long, and how you'll support it. Charles Darwin had a highly structured daily routine involving prescribed walks on a very specific gravel path, known as the sandwalk, purely to mull over his ideas without interruption.
He needed that physical ritual.
Exactly. The Pulitzer-winning biographer Robert Caro organizes his desk exactly the same way every single day before writing. He wears the same type of suit. It signals to his brain it's time to work.
And occasionally your normal rituals aren't enough. Sometimes you're facing massive procrastination or a terrifyingly huge project. That's when you might need what the sources call a grand gesture.
The grand gesture. I love this concept.
This is when you make a radical change to your normal environment, often paired with a significant, somewhat painful investment of effort or money. The goal is to boost the perceived importance of a task so high that your brain is essentially tricked into prioritizing it over distraction.
The examples in the sources are phenomenal. J.K. Rowling was struggling to finish the final Harry Potter book. She was a billionaire, but her house was full of kids, dogs, and constant distractions. She couldn't focus.
So what did she do?
She didn't just go to a local coffee shop. She rented a suite at the Balmoral Hotel in Edinburgh, one of the most incredibly expensive, luxurious hotels in the city, just to write. The cost of the room forced her to take the work seriously.
That's a huge gesture.
Another great one. Entrepreneur Peter Shankman needed to write a book manuscript, but he was on an incredibly tight deadline and constantly distracted. He knew about himself that he focused best in the enforced isolation of airplane cabins.
Wait, what did he do?
He executed the ultimate grand gesture. He bought a $4,000 round-trip business class ticket to Tokyo.
You're kidding.
He flew to Japan, riding the whole way, landed, drank an espresso in the airport lounge, got on the exact same plane, and flew all the way back to the U.S.
That is wild.
He finished the entire manuscript on the flights. The sheer financial cost and the absurdity of the gesture forced his brain into absolute compliance.
It's an extreme tactic, but it works by altering your psychology. Now, to actually execute these strategies day to day without flying to Japan,
Right.
the sources suggest borrowing a framework from the corporate world, specifically the 4 disciplines of execution.
Let's run through those.
First, you must focus on the wildly important. Don't try to use deep work to accomplish 10 different things. Have one specific, highly ambitious goal.
Second, act on lead measures, not lag measures.
Explain the difference there, because I think people get this wrong all the time.
A lag measure is the ultimate goal you're trying to reach, like pages written or revenue generated. The problem is, by the time you measure it, the performance that drove it is already in the past. You can't change it.
Right, it's too late.
A lead measure, however, measures the new behaviors that will drive success on the lag measures. In our context, the ultimate lead measure is simply tracking the number of hours spent in a state of deep work. Don't measure words written, measure hours focused. If you put in the hours, the words will follow.
Third, keep a compelling physical scoreboard near your desk to track those deep work hours. A simple tally mark on a whiteboard works wonders.
And fourth,
create a cadence of accountability. Every week, review your scoreboard. Did you hit your deep work hours? If not, what distracted you, and how will you adjust your system for next week?
here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because we've talked so much about how to work, but the most crucial part of your daily execution actually happens when you stop working.
The shutdown ritual.
Yes. To sustain this over the long haul, you absolutely must implement a strict evening shutdown ritual.
This cannot be overstated. If you want to do deep work tomorrow, you must properly shut down today. When you finish your workday, usually around 5 or 6 p.m., you have to shut down completely. No after-dinner email checks on the couch, no mentally replaying stressful office conversations while you're trying to fall asleep.
And the science behind this is rock solid. First, there's the Zeigarnik effect.
Right, named after the psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik. She noticed that waiters in a cafe could remember complex, unpaid orders perfectly. But the second the bill was paid, they instantly forgot what the person ate.
Exactly. The Zeigarnik effect dictates that incomplete tasks will completely dominate your attention and drain your subconscious mental energy. If you leave work with a dozen vague, unfinished tasks floating in your head, your brain will not let you rest. You will be anxious all evening.
So how do we combat this?
To combat this, you need a shutdown ritual. Take 10 or 15 minutes at the very end of the day to review every single incomplete task. Make a concrete written plan for how and when you will handle them later. By capturing them and making a plan, you signal to your subconscious that it's safe to release those thoughts.
It's like closing the tabs in your brain.
Yes. And then there's the second piece of science, attention restoration theory, or RT. As we established, your directed attention, your willpower muscle, is finite. RT proves that exposing yourself to inherently fascinating but low-demand stimuli allows your directed attention centers to replenish.
What does that mean in plain English?
It means walking in nature, playing with your dog, having a casual, easy conversation with your spouse, reading a novel, or just truly, completely disconnecting. These activities restore your brain. But if you keep sneaking glances at your work email all evening, or if you spend your downtime consuming hyper-stimulating social media, you are actively preventing that neurological restoration.
You must have a hard cutoff to be effective the next day. As Newport says, when you work, work hard. When you're done, be done.
Which perfectly transitions us to the next critical phase. We've talked about scheduling and routines, but all the scheduling in the world won't help if your brain is what researchers call a mental wreck. We move to rule number 2, embrace boredom, and rule number 3, quit social media.
This is where it gets uncomfortable for a lot of us. The sources highlight the terrifying work of Clifford Nass, a late communications professor at Stanford. He studied chronic multitaskers.
The people who brag about it.
These are the people who proudly claim they can juggle 20 browser tabs, text their friends, and write an essay all at the same time. They switch their attention at the slightest hint of boredom. Nass's research showed that these people aren't actually good at multitasking, and in fact, they are terrible at it.
And the long-term effects.
More importantly, they literally lose the ability to filter out irrelevancy. They permanently rewire their brains so that they cannot concentrate even when they desperately want to. They have destroyed their capacity for depth.
And here is the harsh truth that many people don't want to hear. Taking a digital detox or an internet Sabbath on Sundays does absolutely nothing to fix this underlying neurological damage.
Yeah, the digital detox is a massive myth.
Think about it in terms of diet. If you eat fast food, candy, and donuts 6 days a week, and then you eat a kale salad on Sunday, are you going to lose weight?
Of course not. Your body is still built out of junk.
The same applies to your attention. If you give in to distraction every single time you feel a tiny twinge of boredom during the week, pulling out your phone the second you hit a red light, or wait in line for coffee, a weekend phone detox won't fix your brain. You are training your brain 95% of the time that boredom is an emergency that must be immediately soothed with digital novelty.
The strategy here requires a total paradigm shift. Most people try to schedule breaks from distractions so they can focus. They say, I'll put my phone away for an hour to work. That's backwards.
Wait, explain that.
You must schedule breaks from focus so you can give in to distraction. The sources recommend a tactic called the internet blocks method. Keep a physical notepad right next to your computer. Write down the exact time you are next allowed to use the internet for entertainment or shallow checking.
Okay.
Let's say it's currently 10 a.m. and you write down 10:30 a.m. Until 10:30 arrives, you are absolutely, strictly forbidden from going online or checking your phone. Now, here's the crucial part. If you get stuck on your work at 10:15 and you feel that painful wave of boredom or frustration, you cannot use the internet to escape. You have to sit there. You have to endure it.
Just sit with the discomfort.
Enduring that boredom, sitting with the frustration without reaching for a digital pacifier, is literally concentration calisthenics. You are actively training your brain's tolerance for the absence of novelty. You are repairing the damage Nass talked about.
It's like doing reps at the gym. It hurts, but it builds the muscle. To push that training even further, the sources suggest trying Roosevelt dashes.
Roosevelt dashes.
This is named after Theodore Roosevelt. When he was at Harvard, his schedule was absolutely packed with extracurriculars, boxing, wrestling, naturalism clubs. To survive academically, he would give himself artificially impossible deadlines for his dense reading and coursework. If a reading normally took 2 hours, he would give himself 1 hour.
And the key is setting a physical countdown timer.
Exactly. You slash the time you'd normally allocate, set the timer, and force yourself into a state of teeth-gritting, hyper-intense concentration. You simply do not have the time to be distracted. If you check your phone for even a minute during a Roosevelt dash, you'll miss the deadline. It trains your brain to drop into the deepest levels of focus rapidly.
And this intense focus training naturally necessitates rule number 3, quitting social media. You cannot cultivate a deep life while simultaneously fracturing your attention across 5 different social networks.
It just doesn't work.
The sources share the story of Baraton Thurston, who was a highly connected digital consultant, essentially living on Twitter and Facebook. He decided to completely disconnect for 25 days, and what he discovered was profound.
What happened?
He realized he was missing actual life. When he wasn't constantly trying to document his experiences online, the food he ate actually tasted better. His conversations with friends were vastly deeper and more meaningful. The constant low-level hum of anxiety vanished.
But the problem with how most of us approach social media is what the sources identify as the any-benefit mindset. This is the flawed, insidious logic that keeps us hooked.
Right, the but-what-if mindset.
It's the mindset that says, well, I know Facebook wastes 3 hours of my day, but I use it because I might occasionally see a book announcement from a guy I went to high school with 15 years ago, or I need to be on Twitter because I might miss a breaking news story.
Even though the costs are huge.
Right. If a digital tool offers any small benefit whatsoever, or if it triggers your fear of missing out, You automatically assume it is necessary to your life.
That mindset is a trap. It completely ignores the massive invisible costs. The cost of your time, the cost of your attention span, and the cost of your ability to do deep work. Instead of the any benefit mindset, we must adopt the craftsman approach to tool selection.
How does that work?
A craftsman doesn't just buy every single tool in the hardware store just in case it might be useful someday. He carefully selects only the tools that are strictly necessary to build the specific thing he is building. To apply this, you must first identify your high-level professional and personal goals, what actually matters to you.
Okay, set the goals first.
Then, objectively evaluate each network tool. Ask yourself, does this tool have a substantially positive impact, a negative impact, or little impact on my ability to achieve this specific goal? You only adopt the tool if its positive impacts vastly outweigh the negative impacts.
And we have to be honest with ourselves here. Social media companies have brilliantly marketed this fear of missing out. They've convinced us that if we aren't on Instagram, we will become social pariahs.
It's just marketing.
But in reality, they are massive private corporations whose products are engineered by behavioral psychologists to be highly addictive. Their entire business model relies on exchanging your fragmented attention for advertiser dollars. You are the product. You have to take your attention back to deploy it toward your own goals.
Which brings us to the final hurdle. We've defined the value of depth. We've set up our routines. We've trained our brains to tolerate boredom and kicked our social media addictions. But we still have to navigate the reality of the actual workday. We still have bosses, clients, and inboxes.
This leads us to rule number 4, drain the shallows.
We have to actively fight back against the shallow work that inevitably tries to fill our calendars. To prove how unnecessary most shallow work actually is, the sources share an incredible experiment run by the software company 37 Signals, now known as Basecamp.
What did they do?
They decided to give their employees an entire month completely off from all shallow work. For 30 days, there were no status meetings, no mandatory check-ins, no busy work, no expectation of immediate email replies. They were just told to work deeply on completely new ideas or massive improvement.
It was a huge risk. Most managers would assume the company would collapse without the constant coordination of meetings and emails.
But it didn't collapse. In fact, it yielded 2 massive, highly profitable, completely new projects that they never would have had the time to develop otherwise.
That is wild.
The experiment proved a radical truth. A huge percentage of the shallow work that we think is absolutely fundamentally critical to keeping the business running is actually surprisingly dispensable. The sky doesn't fall when you stop attending useless meetings.
But to cut the shallow work out of your life, you first have to accurately identify it. And this can be tricky because a lot of shallow work is disguised as important.
How do you actually know if a task on your to-do list is shallow or deep?
The sources provide the ultimate heuristic, a simple question to ask yourself. How many months would it take to train a smart, recent college graduate with absolutely no specialized training in your field to complete this specific task?
Oh, that is a brutal question. I love it.
It cuts right through the delusion. If the answer is, I could train an intern to do this in a few days or a week, tasks like updating a PowerPoint format, compiling standard weekly metrics, scheduling a conference call, or responding to routine vendor emails, then the task is shallow. It is not generating massive new value.
It's just logistics.
If, however, the answer is, it would take months or years of intense training and experience, like developing a new marketing strategy, writing a complex algorithm, or closing a nuanced sales deal, then it's deep work that leverages your hard-won expertise. You must ruthlessly minimize the former to maximize the latter.
Once you identify the shallow, you have to constrain it.
Yeah.
And my absolute favorite tactic for this is called fixed schedule productivity. The sources talk about Rafika Naipal, who was a junior academic researcher.
But academia is tough.
The culture in academia is notoriously toxic when it comes to hours. Junior professors routinely work grueling 12-hour days and spend all weekend in the lab just trying to get tenure. But Radhika looked at that and said, "No, I refuse." She hard-capped her work week at exactly 50 hours. She would not work a minute past that limit.
By putting an artificial, non-negotiable limit on her workday, she forced herself into a scarcity mindset.
Exactly. This is the core of it. When time is endless, when you can just finish it tonight after dinner, you say yes to every shallow request. You agree to sit on that useless committee. You agree to read that unnecessary report.
Because you think you have time.
But when your time is strictly capped, when time becomes a scarce resource, you automatically become ruthless. You start culling low-value, shallow tasks simply to fit the container of your schedule. You learn how to say no.
And guess what happened to Redika?
She got fired.
No. By ignoring the shallow noise and focusing her 50 hours only on deep, needle-moving research, she succeeded wildly and secured tenure at Harvard.
Wow. And to successfully maintain that fixed schedule, you have to change how you communicate. You must become hard to reach.
Which doesn't mean ignoring people.
It doesn't mean ignoring people. It means taking control of the communication channels. For example, we have to stop replying to emails with open-ended, lazy questions. How often do you get an email about a project and you just reply, thoughts? Or, when should we meet to discuss?
All the time. It feels fast in the moment.
It feels fast, but it is a disaster for your schedule. By sending that, you've just initiated a 6-message, shallow back-and-forth chain that will interrupt your focus all afternoon. Instead, the sources suggest a process-centric approach to email.
Process-centric? How does that work?
When you get an email, pause. Don't just react. Take an extra minute to define what the underlying project actually is. Outline the exact sequence of steps needed to finish it. Then, send a comprehensive reply that states those steps, identifies where the project currently is, and explicitly states who is responsible for the next step.
So instead of, when should we meet, you reply with, here are the 3 dates and times I'm available. If one works, send a calendar invite. If not, please propose 3 alternatives. Once the meeting is set, please prepare a 1-page summary of the client's demands so we can make a decision in the room.
Precisely. It might take you an extra 2 minutes to write that email, but it completely short-circuits the endless, shallow, back-and-forth ping-pong. It closes the loop immediately. It protects your future attention.
Okay, let's pull all of this massive amount of information together. This has been a profound journey. We've seen that deep work isn't just some neat little productivity hack or a way to get your inbox to 0.
It's much bigger than that.
It's a fundamental rewiring of how you approach value creation in your entire life. From understanding the brutal macroeconomic necessity of depth and the great restructuring, how capital and high-level skills are separating the winners from the losers, to finding true philosophical meaning in a craftsman-like approach to your daily tasks.
We've talked about building eudaimonia-style rituals, understanding the biology of myelin, battling our finite willpower,
using grand gestures, and breaking our addiction to constant digital novelty through concentration calisthenics.
It requires nothing less than a complete paradigm shift in how you view your time and your attention. And I want to leave you with a final thought that builds on a classic story about Bill Gates.
Oh, the basic story.
Back in the 1970s, when Gates spent 8 intense weeks coding the basic language for the Altair computer, he worked so deeply with such ferocious concentration that he would literally fall asleep, slumped over his keyboard in the middle of a line of code, wake up an hour later, and immediately resume typing.
Insane focus.
Now, he wasn't doing that out of a sense of moral superiority. Deep work is not a moral stance. It is a pragmatic, cold-blooded recognition that sustained concentration is the only thing that gets truly valuable things done in this world.
So I challenge you to look at your own life through that exact same pragmatic lens. Open up your phone or your computer right now. Look at your calendar for the next week. Look at the meetings, look at the tasks, look at the blank spaces. Does that calendar reflect a life of a person actively trying to create real, profound value? Or is it a life perfectly, tragically optimized for distraction?
That is the ultimate question you have to answer.
Wow. Does your calendar reflect value or distraction? Thank you for taking this massive deep dive with us today. Remember, a deep life is a good life. Don't let the shallow steal your potential or your peace of mind. Take back your attention, build your tower, and start working deeply right now.